Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with their world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path of the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
What in the hell is wrong with that intro?
You didn't send us the full one.
No, I did. I sent. It's like a minute and a half longer than that. I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah, we don't have it. I don't have it. You better send it again. Okay. I didn't get it.
I'll fix. It's like a 2-minute and 20-something long freaking intro, and it's like there's nothing on the back end of it. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, the intro's over. And I'm waiting for it to go off. I'm like, shit, is this thing looped or what? No, it's not looped. I don't know what's going on. All right, well.
I have no idea.
Well, that can kill it. All right. Well, well, hell, this is your show, not mine.
Well, I just thought since you were here, just go ahead.
Last time I tried to do this, y'all griped at me. I was told not to do it anymore. Hello, folks. It's almost like doing a front porch, isn't it? So I'm sorry y'all are having to suffer through that again. But listen, we got a heck of a cool show for you, I think, because we've done some research on this stuff, and we're going to talk about some stuff that there's never been talked about that I know of. But we've got, I don't want to call them guests. They're not guests. They're
right.
We got two pests in the background that we're going to have up. And I think that's the way we're going to go with it. We've got Jason and Donnie. Now, Brandy, before I bring him, and unfortunately, Jason has the power. He can pop in anytime he wants, but I want to ask you. Yeah, see. So what I want to ask you about, one, tell us why I'm here. And Krista is not.
Well, the thing is that Krista and I were supposed to be both traveling to the Ray County Museum tonight. Unfortunately, my daughter was sick last night. That's why I wasn't on last night. And I'm staying home another evening with her, and I'll be taken out first thing in the morning. So here I am. So Krista has already left. She is already at the location now. And, I guess she's going to get everything all spooky for me.
That sounds...
I don't buy the story, by the way.
So, talking about the Ray County Museum, I was on the show and we was talking about, I was very interested in the murders that happened, and Goldie being there and everything. And I took down some information and I looked into it, and then I stick the pit bull on it, which is Danielle. Now, I don't know if y'all know how much work this woman puts into these damn shows that we do on Infamous Minds. She does not show up with a show that she doesn't have. I think the least I've ever seen her have is like 3 pages of freaking notes on whoever we're talking about. And
yeah, I don't know how she does that. I mean, I might have a half page.
Yeah. And she digs up information. I don't know where she gets it. She digs up information because I'll go through and look at these cases and I'll go, well, I don't know much about this, blah, blah, blah. And then she'll just rattle all these freaking details out. I'm like, where did you find this? But anyway, I sent her the information on the case and what I could find. And I said, take a look at this. And I gave her the background and everything about the museum and Goldie and everything. So we're going to do that for an episode. And I'm excited about it. I really, really am, because this is I think it's a fascinating case, and it's still unsolved to this day, as far as I'm concerned. So,
absolutely. And then, when you get to that museum and you get to actually look at this stuff,
right,
that's associated with her, it's just amazing.
Because I was actually able to see some pictures that they couldn't show online last night. Of the hangings and the actual crime scene loosely a crime scene photo, because it looks like they gathered up all the bodies and threw them on a kitchen table and took pictures of them, because all the bodies were scattered all over the house. They weren't all together, and all these bodies, this woman and her 2 infant children are just thrown on this kitchen table like slabs of meat. And the most tragic thing that I saw was Goldie standing there in the audience looking on this site. And the only reason she supposedly or she survived was she went and hid supposedly in a rain barrel. Now Pixie picked up on something last night that when she would run off and hide when she was living there at Ray County, that she would go hide in a laundry closet. But there's on the plans and everything, nobody knows where that laundry closet would have been. Now, tomorrow when y'all do y'all's live, Pixie's going to be there, and actually she said she could show y'all where the laundry closet would have been. So she's going to guide y'all to that, which that's
absolutely.
That's going to be
absolutely awesome. Yeah. Take me there. Like I said, I'll be running around with my camera. I'll be mobile. You definitely can send me wherever you need me to go, and that's what the show is about. Because I've been there a lot of times, and I know where I like to be. But if there's somebody in the audience who's kind of feeling something or wants to see something, absolutely direct me there, and they will tell me where to go.
And she's used to that because we tell her where to go all the time. But
it's not nice either. I'm just saying.
So we're gonna get these 2 pests up here because I don't want to call them guests. So.
Right.
I was wondering if you'd forgotten about us.
I tried, but it didn't work.
Hi. Hello.
I knew he was going to say something. I just didn't know what it was, but it was a lot nicer than what I was imagining in my head. So,
well, it's your channel. I'm not going to be overly bad.
And it's really cool because Jason doesn't do a lot of shows anymore.
Right.
Well, he's trying not to do a lot of shows anymore. I'm going to put it that way.
Thank you.
But
that's true.
But honestly, he's not going to say no if somebody asks him to do a show, because he's not like that.
He says no to me all the time.
Well, that's
but his schedule is so busy that you do have to ask way ahead of time. You have to schedule it in. He's never just doing nothing.
Because I was just going to say it's just because it's Donnie, but
well, I was going to say real shows, but
but
that's fair.
But it's nice to get on the same show with him every once in a while, because it's when we started Texas Front Porch, after I met him and everything, that's really when the Front Porch took off, because when I was doing it solo, let's be honest, it was absolutely horrible.
It just went downhill from there.
But and now I I upgraded from this to that. So, I just don't know where I'm going to go from here. I'm probably going to be the one next one.
I wore lower cut shirts than she does. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. You will unbutton your shirts on air for us. But so now Jason was sick last week, so he's just coming off of the same thing it sounds like your daughter's got, and
yes. So
hopefully she's fixing to kick it and be done with it, because he kicked his about 2 days after he was pretty much good to go about 2 days after he kicked his fever. So
yeah. And my daughter, she was so sad because I can tell she's still sick. I mean, she's getting a little bit better, and so I'm leaving in the morning, but she's still not well enough to go with me. But she's my ride or die. She goes with me pretty much everywhere she can, and this is one of those places where she can go, and she's upset.
Yep.
Oh man. Moon at Noon says they can't undo their shirt because the third nipple gives away too much. We have the same problem with Donnie. And don't forget about the conference, Alabama conference, coming up in June, because Donnie, you're going to be there.
I'll be there.
Have you decided yet?
I'm going to be there.
Huh?
No, I was.
Oh yeah, you're going to try to pick up on Danielle's sister. I forgot about that.
Oh hey man, what stays back? That stays backstage, sir.
But
don't you have a banner that you can throw up there?
I don't know if I do or not. Did y'all put it on here?
I didn't see it. I was actually just looking for that.
Oh, well.
Let me see if I can download it from the email.
Okay. Or
just type it up really quick. That way people have the information.
Oh, a banner.
Because it's really hard to do it this way. I mean, it's great that we can, but it gets a little difficult because this is not actually on the. There you go.
I got that. I thought she was talking about the flyer, but I don't have the flyer here.
I just downloaded.
You don't have the flyer?
Hold on. I am coming to help.
Well, you're going to have to call technical support.
Felicia says, that is so sweet, Brandy. My daughter is the same way. Her daughter's recovering from colon rectal cancer and now has COVID. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
That's terrible.
Oh, geez. Well, definitely on my prayer list. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we got to add another one to the prayer list.
Yeah, it's getting quite long, but the holidays bring that. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, it's because everybody's crammed into. They stay indoors.
Yeah.
They pass stuff around. Yeah. And the school is like a petri dish anyway. So I'm hosting this thing. Now y'all got to remember, this is not our gig. This is the third one that Anita Collier has put together, and she's done a fantastic job. And we helped a little bit last year, and we offered our help this year, and I think it's really good. I think I'm excited about it. We've got Jason speaking, BMR speaking. We got Greg Ogles, which is another guy that's sick. Martin Groves is speaking. Well, I love talking to Martin. He's awesome dude. Daryl Denton's going to be there speaking with Martin Groves, and of course Brandy and Krista are going to be speaking also. And Barton Nunnelly will be there. Inhumanoids. Barton Nunnelly with inhuman. Boy, I can't talk tonight. Not any different than any other night. But you can take it down now there, Jason.
That'd be BamaBigfootConference.com. BamaBigfootConference.com.
And don't forget about the meet and greet on Friday, because you don't have to pay to come eat with us, but you do have to pay for your own meal. Just RSVP, shoot one of us an email, say, hey, I'm going to be there, and we'll add it to the list. So that way we can get a head count.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about tonight, Donnie, real quick, I don't want to forget you, brother. What you got going on your side of things?
Well, my show is Donnie Cho Says Stuff every Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also sometimes I'll do like a weekend show if I'm bored. Come, especially if you are an attractive single female, especially come. But if you're like below a 6, probably find something.
If you're easily offended, don't go to his channel. I'm just saying.
No, please don't.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
it really isn't.
Just don't.
Or for those who love pineapple pizza or Jim Caviezel.
Right.
Now, do you have anything that you know the topic that you're gonna talk about on your next show? Which is
I believe. Well, I did talk to Krista about getting her on. So we're planning some stuff. Jason and I are planning some stuff. We got. I don't want to give it away too soon, but yeah, we've got a lot of friends coming on, a lot of familiar faces.
Awesome.
It's going to be a fun one.
So, what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about these unknown canine attacks, murders, and stuff. And I ran across some that I haven't heard anybody talk about. And of course, I brought up, we'll talk about the normal ones, but what before we get started into the cases, and there's really one case that I find really interesting, but what do y'all think's going on with these unknown canine attacks? Why couldn't? Thank you so much, Liberty.
Thank you, Liberty.
What do y'all think is going on with these unknown canine or unknown animal attacks? Because there's really no reason that they can't identify animals, especially with DNA these days.
Well, I think there was one of those cases that we were actually discussing offline where, the DNA, it looks like the dog, and we'll get to the details on it, but the canines in question were not the attackers, right?
Right.
So I think, I do think we tend to overestimate what we can do with DNA, to be honest. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I think a lot of these attacks, they're listed as unknown because the person being attacked doesn't really remember what it was that attacked them, right? Some of them, even it's like, well, was it if
they survive.
If they survive, right? If they survive. However, some of the others, I think the simple fact of the matter is, though, I even will wonder how many of them were actually canines. Meaning,
but the thing about it is, I mean, look at shark attacks. They can identify a shark, what kind of shark attacked somebody. And some of those things they don't have. I'm sorry, I don't get graphic here, but there ain't much left of them.
Right. Well, and I think that, and what I mean by canid, right? I think we may actually be seeing a much greater variety of assaults, meaning the creatures in question may not all necessarily be of a traditional variety. And so people are more familiar with dog attacks or big cat attacks. So it's like, well, what can we chalk it up to that's the least odd, right?
Right.
Because I think that's one of those things where it's just, okay, well, it was a pack of dogs. Okay, great. Then you have some obvious questions, but most people are just going to say, okay, pack of dogs, and move on. Not, okay, well, then have you done the DNA to tell us which dogs did it so we can track them down, etc. It's a bear. I think when they, again, if they're saying unknown, it's because they don't know. Not necessarily that it's something strange, but rather that it's just they can't necessarily identify it. Because again, for all the reasons said before, but also because I think on some of them, it's much more bizarre. It's not necessarily Dogman or whatever, but there could be other things out there doing damage to people, causing these injuries. And they're like, we just don't know what it is. So even the leap in this community to say, well, it must have been a Dogman or whatever. It's like, that may even be too far of a leap for us. There may be something else out there that we're not taking into consideration.
That is true.
And what's worse is, let's take it even one step more into the weird. What if Dogman's a scapegoat for something much more bizarre?
Oh, you mean like something like left those big hooven prints?
Yeah. I mean, Brown Springs, everyone's like, oh, Bigfoot killed these people, right? And then you have the story and the lore that builds up around it that's all wrong. But there were people murdered. And what was it? It was essentially there was an occult part to it, but that it was essentially a violent gang initiation, but it's wrapped within occult activity, because a lot of these South American gangs are occultists as part of their thing. So it could even be much more bizarre than someone being attacked by a monster per se. There could be something else going on. That's all, because we need to be a little more open. So maybe the reason they're putting unknown is because this may be truly much more bizarre than we realize.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when I talk about my Dogman encounter, and me and Randy talk about all these attacks on this livestock that was going on,
mm-hmm.
It inevitably was either blamed on a pack of wild dogs or a big cat. Okay.
Yep.
But we never saw this pack of wild dogs anywhere, and we roamed the countryside. Okay. Where all this stuff was happening. Never saw a pack of wild dogs. Never.
Well, and so, something I keep mentioning is your case has a touch of the supernatural to it. That you tend to overlook because you take that event and you separate it from your Dogman encounters.
It is something I don't talk about a whole lot. Just because, I don't know. It's one of those things I don't know what to do with. Well, I don't know.
But you know what to do about a 6-foot bipedal wolf?
Well, no, but
that's all I'm saying.
But was that what this was that you're talking about, or was it?
That's the point.
I don't know.
We got to put all the data on the counter. That's all I'm saying, right? Let's put all the data out there. And with Dogman, there is a large connection with the supernatural or the esoteric that we shouldn't really take that out of this mixture.
Right. What he's talking about, folks, I guess I gotta go ahead and talk about this, is I was alone in the house one night, and it was storming. A bad storm. A lot of big light show, hard rain. And I just happened to, because I love storms, and I was looking out the window, and there's a power pole that runs one of the borders of our place, and it was basically in my backyard. And I noticed something during the lightning flashes it looked like somebody was standing next to this light pole. Okay, about 50 yards away from the house. And I would sit there, and because you got to remember, guys, like I said, it's during a storm, it's late night, and I would only catch this thing in flashes of lightning, but it would change its stance. That's why I knew it was something. But it would like lean on the pole, and then it wouldn't lean on the pole, and then it would. But this thing was there for a long, long time. It was to the point where I called a buddy of mine. I was spooked. I called a buddy of mine. I had the shotgun loaded, because I didn't know what the hell I was dealing with because of what I had dealt with, So I don't know what this was. And normally I don't talk about it because I don't know why. But was it this Dogman, or Was it a werewolf or whatever you want to call it? If it was a werewolf, was it what could it have possibly been? The person that had changed into this creature, watching me or watching my house anyway. I mean, who in their right mind is going to be standing out in the middle of a damn country next to a power pole in a lightning storm and stand there for, God, it was probably there for an hour or so.
So what were you doing? You were just kind of staring at it out the window?
Yeah, I would look out the window and I would see the lightning flash and I would see the thing standing there and then it would flash again and I would see the change in stance or whatever and I would pace up and down and I was talking to a buddy of mine on the phone. What the hell's going on here? I'm scared to death and all this kind of stuff and walking around with my daddy's shotgun with the 12 gauge loaded up with slugs and double lock buck. I mean, doors were locked, and everything.
I don't know. That would just scare me.
Do what?
I said that would just scare me. I wouldn't know what to think. What to think at that point. All I would know is that it's standing there. Mm-hmm. And of course, in a flash of lightning, most times you don't have a lot of time to really focus on it.
A couple of seconds at most.
Yeah, maybe.
So, Glenn, you're right. It's straight out of a damn horror film,
And how long ago was it?
And Hawk says they're what does it say? What does it say? Something about they're known to follow us home. Bigfoot do it too. You're right. But the thing about it is this thing didn't have to follow. It had obviously been in the area for a couple of years. At least a year before I had seen it, because I think that's what killed my dog.
Oh.
Because I don't know. My daddy told me it was, he got into it with the bobcat. That was one hell of a mad bobcat because he spent the time to gut my dog. And why you gotta get me talking about this stuff, Jason? Dude, God.
That's why I'm here. Well, so going back to the idea of these things following you home, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to get more details from Doug when I interview him for my next book. But one of the things that we were talking about is how he's got a number of accounts of people going out looking for Bigfoot. Right? They're out in the field. They're doing Bigfoot stuff. They come home, great distances. And there are stacks of stones in their living room.
Thank you, Pancho.
Thank you, Pancho.
Thank you, Pancho.
Senor Zorch. Gracias. So it's one of those things where, at that point, that's not a physical creature that just ran to your house before you got there and stacked up a bunch of random stones in your living room. That is we are dealing with something paranormal. To your point, what you observed, that feels far more paranormal than just some random dog person hanging out in the woods around your house, right? We're kind of dealing with something bigger. So let me throw a story that I've got. I've mentioned it a couple times. And it is clearly a physical creature that can't exist, right? Seen by two different people at two different times, same area. And that, well, technically a third person, though the third person doesn't see it as clearly because it was in her house, right? Creature 6.5, 7 foot tall because of the fence. Essentially, they described it as looking like reddish, like a red xenomorph from Aliens. Only it's got big eyes, and again, like an anglerfish. This goes back to that maybe they were killed by something weirder than even a dogman. Again, as we've asked 100 times, everyone sort of assumes we know what a dogman is. Why are we ruling out werewolf, right?
And see, that's what I don't understand. And that's the big question that me and Brandy's been asking for months and months and months. Mm-hmm. And the only person that we've even come close to what I would call an answer was when we was talking to, oh my gosh, I just went blank. But he was talking about the Native Americans that have been passed down, in their history.
Walkers.
Well, skinwalkers, but he said there was some. They were told, if I remember, he was saying that Dogman and werewolves are totally different. I don't know.
Again, but again, it goes back to based on that. That's the problem, right? It's like, what's the evidence? Why do we assume that they're different?
Right.
And it goes back to what this creature that was seen, and by the way, has been seen by other people. I won't throw names out there. They've talked to me and said, "Hey, do you have any accounts of anything that sounds like this?" Yeah, I do. Right. And so again, there are accounts of gargoyles. Like, what the heck do you do with that? My only point is, we see these attacks for okay, it must be Dogman, because again, people talk about unknown creatures, unknown canines in the accounts themselves. Okay, but what if that's the cover? Because they're like, it's really much weirder than that, but people will accept unknown canine or unknown cat, right? We automatically just, must be. But what if it's because there are other things out there that take material form, or people change into them, or whatever it is, but it's weirder than that. And honestly, to a point, calling something a Dogman may actually be the less weird version of what actually occurred.
The movie scene that keeps flashing through my head is, I think it's called Bigfoot, The Lost Coast Tapes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at the very end of the movie, the door opens, and the last thing you hear is, "It's not a Bigfoot." And you see these big cloven feet hit the floor. And then we go back and see, and talk about what we found there in Brown Springs that night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what the hell are we dealing with? And we've been talking for years, Jason, about we think there's something in the background pulling the strings.
Mm-hmm.
And Bigfoot being the distraction and all that kind of stuff. And I really think that it's like somebody said, Jason's on to something. I think we've been on to something for a few years.
LSD.
I almost don't want to call it paranormal or spiritual or anything like that. It's just, I'm still of the mind that I don't think that all these creatures are inherently evil, because I do think there's physical creatures out there. And if they were inherently evil, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Either would Brandy.
Right.
Either would you.
Yep.
Nope.
And I think that's something different. But whatever it is pulling the strings back there is evil. But I don't know. I mean, I'm the one that rolls around in the mud with these, whatever they are. I don't care. I'll poke the bear, on the spiritual side of things. I don't care. But what what is it that are we dealing with? I'll just say, are we dealing with the devil?
Well, speaking of things that are inherently evil, Donnie, what are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, you've, and again, this seems a little off topic, but it's not. You've talked a lot about, in Korean mythology, we don't see a lot of things like Bigfoot or whatever, but there are ghosts that have, or spirits that do have,
bad intentions,
evil intentions. And again, I may be thinking more Japanese than Korean, But there are things like hungry ghosts, or maybe even Chinese, where they will attack and viciously physically assault people, and take chunks out of them, like any creature. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting how, I'm fairly new to the whole cryptid scene. I came in only a few years ago, and all I knew at the time was about Bigfoot, and I just started learning about Dogman. And I feel like the longer I stay here and the more stories I hear, I feel like they keep coming out with new cryptids. Right? I found out about Mothman. I was like, what? Mothman? And then Goatman, and then Not a Deer. And I'm like, geez, where are they pumping out all these new cryptids all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. It's like the DLC drops, and you're like, I just got through with the first one.
Now we got another Mothman going around in Chicago, and then like I don't know. I was reading Ryan Edwards' book that I got from him at the convention. I'm like, how many cryptids are there? Because it's like a whole compendium of all the different cryptids from all the different regions of the world, right?
Yep.
I don't know if they're all evil. I would imagine that some are, and I would imagine a lot of them have very bad intentions towards us. Can't hardly blame them. But I can't say that all of them are evil. Now, does that mean that I want to go hug Bigfoot because he's our forest brother? No, not really.
Well, you may be a little too pretty for that.
Yeah, and I hear they smell real bad.
You might be.
Smell real bad. And
but you'd answer that one question pretty quick, wouldn't you? Though.
But if I ever saw a Bigfoot in the woods or any cryptid in the woods, I'd be real nervous. I give him a wide berth. I'd be like, I don't know what that thing's going to do. I don't know what that thing's intentions are going to be, but more likely than not, it's going to make me disappear, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to see how many new cryptids keep coming out. I feel like.
Well, so then let me ask this question, because I think this is closer to the heart of the story here, right? Of this. Because there are accounts, like I'm the first one to throw cold water on a lot of things, right? I really am. I'm not Randy bad, but I'm bad. It's like, okay, so what's the evidence for it? But the thing is, there are legitimate accounts where you're like, this is weird. Someone was assaulted. There's wounds that are noted. People are dead by genuinely bizarre means. There just are, right? But here's the question: what if? Because I try and draw that line and say, look, there are physical cryptids, I call them natural cryptids, which are creatures that are like a dog or a cat. They're just weird to us. But then you have these other paranormal things. How much? And let's throw a little bit in here for some of these cryptids may be misidentified creatures, and you have lore, you have mythology that builds up. That's a legitimate thing we have to put in there. Folklore is not phenomena, as I always say. However, if we're getting into things that are a little creepier, spookier, like Tex, is it possible that we're not actually, that we have all of these different cryptids, all these different names and slightly different shapes and sizes, but they're all ultimately really the same thing. They just look different because we're never actually seeing them for what they really are.
So what you're saying is it's possible that what we see is not what we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. What if what people are seeing, particularly if you're dealing with something that's inherently paranormal to begin with, right?
Right.
What is to say that what you are seeing is what it is? That's not me saying it isn't occurring, right?
Right.
But rather that who is to say that what you are seeing is what that thing actually is? When you take, Brandy, when we had you and I were interviewing Ryan, right? That's one of the things we were talking about is when you get into what the actual lore of the Wendigo is, it sounds very much like a true werewolf from Eastern Europe a few hundred years ago. You didn't really change into a wolf man. That was never part of the original lore, but you did something. You violated some taboo, some behavior, and essentially you got possessed by a spirit, and you could change, but you would go nuts. And one of the things you did was you ate people. You enacted violence upon another human being, and eating them was a part of it. It connects very tightly to ghouls that we see in the Middle East. And you said something, I think it was even off air, but I brought up because I think it was such a great point. You said, well, violating some sort of cultural taboo was all it took to become possessed by a Wendigo. Then you'd think that Wendigo would have nothing but work all the time today. To which I then said, okay, well, Brandy, you're the one who loves true crime. Don't we often see all of these accounts of these people just seemingly go nuts and eat people and are eating people? Like,
yes.
What if there's, to that point, what if all of these stories of what these things look like, it's not that we're looking at a bunch of different cryptids or a bunch of different paranormal, it's all one, but they're just taking different forms.
Yeah. And absolutely.
I mean, that's really a question that we should consider. And what if some of these forms, the reason that they are attacking people and they are leaving wounds is because it is a physical being that's attacking them. But when you see is the demon manifesting out of the person, right? I mean, I've got questions about shapeshifters, but I've never questioned that shapeshifters exist, because I got stories from people in the, missionaries who will say, look, when a missionary tells you that a voodoo priest physically changes into something else, you don't write that one off, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing if like Donnie was like, I was 5 vodkas deep, and then like that's one story, right? And then then his date turns into a boy. Like, okay, I think we got some other explanations on that one. But when a missionary's like, yeah, no, the voodoo priest could change his, he did this and he changed his shapes. Like and I have more than one of those stories. You got to take that. Like, okay, something's going on. What if a lot of these attacks are people manifesting whatever that, these demonic entities, and they are going out and they are assaulting people, because that's part of what it is. There's essentially a version, a different strain, if you will, of Wendigo, or of the again, going back to the Dogman thing, of the classic werewolf, which was never about really changing shape. Right? It was just the person becoming overwhelmed with this demonic possession and going and doing evil things.
Yeah, it was basically bloodlust.
Yeah.
Kind of like that guy who went nuts on that bus that one time in Canada, that Chinese immigrant who wound up stabbing that dude right next to him and cannibalizing him right on the bus when everyone ran out. It just happened out of the blue. And they were up in that country in Canada. The guy came to, and when they asked him, why'd you do it? And he was just like, please, just put me away. Like,
Yeah,
like,
he had no
how
idea.
Does that happen? Yeah, the guy had
no idea. And we've also talked about that, about the whole, the term I came up with was acute possession.
Sudden acute possession.
Yeah.
Which I love.
And when these women that kill their kids, and then they're like, I don't know why I did what I did, or I don't remember what I did, or it just wasn't me, or
I was watching myself do it.
Yeah, you hear that quite a bit. And then, is this a demon or demonic entity or whatever jumping into this person at a weak moment? And it seems to be postpartum depression is a great time for them to do this, because the women are not in a good place, and they are in a weaker state than they normally would be. He jumps in there, he has his fun, he kills the children, and he backs out and watches the torment of the families and that are destroyed with the axe. Because I think that is more, honestly, I think that is more of the goal than the actual killing.
Well, these things feed off of terror. They feed off of pain.
Right.
I mean, that's clearly a universal on this. And so, yeah, I mean, the idea of them coming in to cause chaos or pain, and again, it's very similar. Again, women postpartum, but I got plenty of stories of cops saying, yeah, this dude just freaks out, starts stabbing, some dude. And you're like, well, why? He's like, I don't know. It's like, I couldn't stop myself. I was outside of my own body watching it happen. Right. Remember the face eater dude, the zombie in Florida, right?
Bath salts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He never tested positive for drugs.
Right.
That's the thing. Everyone got covered up real fast was when the test results came out. They said we couldn't find any drugs in his system, and they chalked it up to the whole bath salts thing was because it was probably some sort of designer thing that they couldn't test for. That was their excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And and the problem is things like that happen a lot more often than you realize. They're just not as public, which goes back to this whole question of these unknown canid attacks, right? Well, great. Extend it out where it's not just an unknown animal or an unknown canid. It's an unknown big cat, right? Like the guy in Lipan. Where it's like, oh, it's a big cat. Okay, but where's the evidence it has anything to do with a cat?
Yeah, when the authorities disagree on what it was, and I'm much more willing to take the game warden and the tracker's word when they're disputing what the other guys are saying, and they're a hell of a lot more knowledgeable than these other two ever want to be about what did the attack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when somebody's found with their throat ripped out, scratches on the body, and they're thrown over in the brush, and and those of you that don't know the story, that's how he was found. He disappeared. They found him, and the sheriff's department and the justice of the peace said, "Oh, it was a big cat attack," and wrote it off. Mm-hmm. But the game warden and the civilian tracker that was there on scene with them disagreed and said there's no evidence of a cat was ever here. This is not how a cat attack goes down. And this was in the papers, folks. And it's like, I think this was the first time that, but from my understanding, the body was real quick and done.
Mm-hmm.
And you never heard another word about it. No DNA, no nothing. So, but that leads us into what we're really going to talk about tonight. And that's these unknown canine or unknown animal attacks. Now, there's several out there. You've got, of course, the famous ones. You've got the bow hunter from LBL, and you've got the family that was massacred in 1982 by a supposed Dogman. And those are probably and of course, what we talked about earlier, we've got the two that were killed in Brown Springs. Those are probably the most famous ones that we know about in this little circle of misfit toys that we have. Now, the ones that we found tonight, that the other ones and the 13-year-old boy in Kentucky, mm-hmm. That's another famous one. But, and I don't think we're going to take a break tonight. Y'all want to just shoot straight through?
Sure. We just got to give
a chance
for
we'll just let Randy know at the 52-minute mark. So the first one I'd like to talk about is one we were talking about off air. I think this is a very compelling case, and guys, this came from, I found this case. Now I'm not real sure how I ran across it. It just popped up when I was doing searches for unknown animal attacks. And it's actually from the National Library of Medicine. And it is a case from 2020, from what we can understand. It was documented on this and on 2020. But this 30-year-old woman was walking in the woods, and she was attacked. Now, if you want to go look it up, I'm sure you can find it. I just told you where it was and told you what the date and all. You can probably find it. they do have pictures of the wounds, but we can't show them here. They're very, very graphic. She survived and took months to recover from these wounds. They put skin grafts and everything. And I mean, you can ask them. Everybody else here saw the wounds.
Yeah,
they're bad.
Yeah, they were.
And the case says it's from an unknown animal. Bye, Christine. But what's up with all the and question marks? What's going on?
Kids are getting riled up in the chat.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it. I got it. Trolls. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
I don't know what they're talking about.
I wish people would try.
Anyway, if this woman survived, how do we have an unknown animal with the DNA technology? This was in 2020 with the DNA technology. How do we have an unknown animal? I'm not saying that it's an unknown canine. I get, because maybe you're only getting partial DNA, but how do we not know what type of animal this was?
Yeah.
I mean, if there was bear, of course, I don't have a location. It doesn't give that. But how do we not know at least if it was a bear or if it was a beaver or whatever it was? Platypus, I don't know. But how do we know that it wasn't? How do we not know what kind of animal it may have been? I find that very, very curious.
It should, well, and it is curious because that's the whole point. There's no reason at this stage of the game with what we have to, like you said. I think there's a lot of the DNA stuff is still up in the air. It's not as refined as we'd like it to be, but you'll know if it's a dog or a bear, right? Or platypus, right? You know, man-eating platypi are
right,
a problem,
which is an ongoing problem.
It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, that it does go back to, look, if you don't know which dog specifically caused it, that's one thing. But if you don't know that it was a dog, then you've got a bigger problem, because you would imagine a person who was being attacked got a pretty good look at what did it, right? Fine details, you trust me. I'm the first one to say, you get adrenaline going. Those details are going to be messed up. You got the trauma. I'm not expecting her to be able to pick the bear out of a lineup, right?
Right.
But
I could even see her confusing the black bear and brown bear. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I would get that, but
yeah, but I mean, bear, unicorn, platypus, dog, cat, like these are things that she should have been able to identify.
Right.
The fact that she can't, and the fact that they don't have enough evidence from the wounds to tell us what did it, should be a really big red flag and a really big question mark as to what's really going on.
And see that, and that's the problem I have with that case.
So
because to me, what caused the attack is pertinent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it had been a shark attack, you could probably go in there and look. You got shark attacks. You got dog attacks.
The teeth marks.
Yeah.
What I found interesting when they said that it was an unknown animal, my first thought was, what, does she get snuck on? Did it sneak up on her from behind or something? But then I'm thinking, well, if it was a bear like sneaking up on someone, I would imagine, because a lot of those wounds that you showed us, Tex, they were under her limbs, right? They were on her arms and legs, which means, you know, she wasn't getting knocked unconscious. You said there were some injuries to her head, right? But
she had an injury, I think, to her
ear,
her back, her head, and her ear, or something like that.
Yeah,
Now, if it was like a mountain lion or an escaped pet tiger, I was thinking that too. That, I mean, they would have probably gone for like the head or the neck, right? And that would have been a wrap.
Right.
In which case, it's
that's how
unknown
cats
to
attack. Again,
Yeah.
big cats go for the head and neck. Again,
And these were gashes. They weren't. It didn't look like teeth marks. That's what another thing. These things were laid open. It to me, it was look good. And Randy said, "Oh, it was a bear." It very well could have been, but how the hell did she not know it wasn't a bear?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, and the arm injury was rather linear. Like it wasn't extensive, but the thing is, it doesn't. Again, bear claws, you're going to get multiple, but it's like a strip was taken out of the inside of her arm. Again, I'm not going to say a bear couldn't have done that, but it was again really odd with some of the things that I've compared to some of the other things I've seen.
Right.
That's all I can say is it was odd. You know, maybe it was a giant snapping turtle that had a bad day. I don't know.
I mean, because
it didn't make any sense to me that it was a very deep wound, but it was only one.
Right.
And it seems like a bear would have a harder time just leaving one scratch because of the way that the pads and everything fall, you know. But if it were Dogman, it can definitely get you with one. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my dogs jumped up on me and got me with just one, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's that.
Well, and another thing that struck me as odd, if you look at the wounds, the pictures where the wounds are relatively fresh. Mm-hmm. There's no bruising.
Well, and that goes back to the whole point, right? Is she survived? Because we have several other accounts where people were killed. And again, it's unknown canid, it's unknown whatever, it's unknown this. Or you have, again, like the case in Lipan, where you have conflicting stories or accounts from what the officials are saying caused it. The fact that she doesn't know what did it is very telling.
Right.
Because she did survive. Like I said, I'm not expecting a lot of detail here, but was it a bear? Was it a dog? You know, big cat? Like that should be kind of identifiable. The fact that she can't. Maybe the problem isn't that she can't, it's that they won't say what it is.
Yeah.
Because again, it goes back to not necessarily the doctors think, oh no, this was clearly a werewolf.
Thank you, Hawk.
Whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Hawk.
But rather that they're like, okay, you know, she says I was attacked by this thing, and they're like, that's trauma, that's adrenaline, that's just in your head. It was probably an animal, and you're just, you know, it's your head is making you think this. It doesn't necessarily, I know everyone jumps to conspiracy, cover up. No, it doesn't necessarily need to be conspiracy for someone to say, nope, you were attacked by something, but the adrenaline and the fear, your mind's playing tricks on you. That's all they have to say. They just have to believe that that's not a possibility, and they write it out.
Yeah.
So, but fundamentally, the issue here isn't that she was injured, but the fact that we don't know what could have caused it. And that's the bigger problem, is that we have accounts that do not fit big cats. They don't fit dogs. They don't fit with bears. And they don't fit with these things. And
I want Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. Okay. Hey, I'm not saying that's not true. He says dogmen are evil, invisible shapeshifters. They will manifest when ready to pounce. You put the thing in all caps, so I'm assuming that you are not fooling around, and that's what you think, or that's what you believe. And I'm not saying that's not a possibility. What I'm asking you is, how do you know? That's all I want to know. Is it? Please tell.
We've been going at this whole dogman werewolf thing forever. It seems like, it's kind of like, how would you know the difference if you haven't seen them both,
right,
side by side? So how would you know the difference if you only had one experience in your lifetime? even though it was up close and personal, how would you know that that is this or that is that? That is our thing. That, is we are trying to find out how to say, okay, I see that right there, and that is a dogman, and that is a werewolf. That's what we're trying to cut that line dry.
Wildman says, I know from being near where they're at, I had to quit a job because they won, I quit. Email me. I want to hear more of the story.
I do too.
I'm not saying you have to come on the show, but I want to hear the story.
We want to hear that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because a lot of our research is done talking to people.
Yeah. So, shoot us an email. Let me know, because I really want to know. But getting back, and there's another case that we ran across, and this is an elderly woman. And I'll say, so I don't think 75 is not elderly. Closer I get to it, I refuse to believe.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like, no, it's still elderly. You're just a lot closer to it than we are.
But now this one was Brenda Hamilton was her name, and she was a school teacher, and I'm reading this off of the WITN site and Channel 7. Now, has obtained a copy of autopsy results of Brenda Hamilton, the veteran school teacher who was killed by an unknown canine. It was just like last week that Beaufort County deputies completed their investigation into the Pentago woman's death and said they were unable to determine what kind of canine attacked her. They've chosen not to show the injuries because they were graphic or even describe them. The 77-year-old woman sadly suffered extensive injuries all over her body. She was attacked on February 15th while she was walking on Indian Run Road outside of Pentago. The deputies say Hamilton was found in a ditch submerged up to her shoulders in water. Neighbors awakened while their dogs found them near Hamilton and alerted authorities. Hamilton was taken to the hospital unresponsive and died 3 days later, February 18th. The autopsy report states that Hamilton's husband said she walked every morning around 5 a.m. with a group of local dogs. Brenda Hamilton, investigators say the two dogs, back up. Say two dogs were not wet that were found on the scene, and there was no visible signs of mud or blood on them. Field tests done later that afternoon showed trace amounts of blood on their paws and in their mouth, which I think was probably them just walking around the scene, maybe licking her, because dogs, if they're worried about you, they're going to do that. The dogs were eventually seized and quarantined for observation. Deputies say they never showed any aggression during the 10-day quarantine and were returned to their owners. DNA samples were taken from 14 dogs in the area of the attack. As dog DNA was found on the victim's outer jacket and her shoe, it matched the two dogs that were found near the woman of the day of the attack. The lab located dog mitochondrial DNA on a swab from Hamilton's ear, a swab from her scalp, and the flashlight she carried in her hand, her hooded sweatshirt, her T-shirt, and a dead nutrient which was found nearby. So whatever attacked her attacked also a dead nutrient. Now, I've got a theory about that. Deputies say the DNA came from one of the same two dogs. However, mitochondrial DNA, which comes from a mother, is non-discriminating, and a match to a specific dog could not be made. After hearing, Beaufort County's Dangerous Dog Committee did not find the dogs dangerous. After the completion and all testing and the review of the scientific circumstantial evidence in this case, we are unable to make a definitive determination as to what type of canine attacked Brenda Hamilton. Deputies said in a news release, while the DNA evidence brings the two domestic canines under suspicion, the observation of those two canines by deputies, animal control officers, and investigators tells a different story. On the morning of Mrs. Hamilton, the Chavez family was awakened by their dogs barking on the road where the attack occurred. When they went to investigate, they found their dogs near Hamilton, who was lying in a ditch submerged up to her shoulders in water. Mr. Chavez pulled Hamilton from the water while his wife summoned help from another neighbor, and they called 911. EMS personnel arrived to find Hummer suffering from catastrophic injuries to both arms, both legs, her scalp. She was transported where she died days later. The Beaufort County Sheriff's Department deputies and animal control officers responded to the scene. North Carolina, where this took place. North Carolina wildlife officers and biologists also responded to aid in the investigation. Investigators were not able to locate any eyewitnesses to the attack, which likely occurred during darkness shortly after 5 a.m. that morning. Deputies located a dead nutria where the attack began. The nutria appeared to be a fresh kill, and injuries to it appeared to have been inflicted by another animal. A considerable amount of blood was also found on the road, leading investigators where Hamilton was found in the ditch. The two dogs near Hamilton were examined about an hour after the attack, and deputies animal controllers displayed no signs of aggression, blah, blah, blah. They were not wet, no visible sign of mud or blood.
Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
Dogs tested positive for trace of human DNA. On the same day of the attack, wildlife took several items of evidence to the forensic lab at Western Carolina University to be tested. The next day, sheriff's investigators were told by the wildlife department biologists that domestic canine DNA was located on Hamilton's jacket, and on those test results would no longer, based on those test results, the wildlife department would no longer be involved in the investigation. However, on the following Monday, sheriff's investigators spoke directly with the lab and learned the DNA during the initial testing was likely domestic canine DNA, but the testing did not rule out wild canines indigenous to the area. For that reason, the sheriff's department requested the lab perform further testing in search for definitive answers. Yeah. So
to sum up, what we have is the only DNA they were able to actually that they obtained that they could actually point to anything was from these two dogs that clearly did not attack her. In fact, were probably the ones who were were the ones that alerted.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you again, Sherry. That's a second. Yeah, thank you. They alerted their owners to her situation, which goes back to the presence of the blood was, and again, they were in quarantine for 10 days. They were non-aggressive, so they are not they're not the ones that did this. Which means the DNA they picked up was because the dogs were trying to rouse her. They were worried. That's the only DNA they got.
Yeah,
was from these two dogs. Now, the nutria that was dead nearby, could that have been killed by the same thing that attacked her? Maybe, but even that conclusion is an assumption, because one of the dogs could have killed the nutria. I mean, just giant rats, a dog that's nonviolent towards humans can go after a giant rat if it wants to. Mm-hmm. But that's the problem, is we have a woman who was viciously attacked and killed. And everyone's like, but really the only evidence for it being a dog, or the woman was attacked by a dog, was the DNA from the dogs that were clearly not the things that killed her.
Yeah. I find it interesting that they removed themselves from the investigation once, but they didn't do their due diligence, or it doesn't appear that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good point. Doesn't appear that the wildlife department did their due diligence. But
well, it's kind of like it's like once they said, oh well, it could be a domestic dog. They're like, okay, I'm out. I don't have to explain anything else. I'm out. But they didn't go back when they said a few days later that it didn't take into account the undomesticated canines in the area.
It didn't rule the wild ones out.
They didn't come back. They just said, nope, we're done. We're done. First time, we're done. So they didn't go back after that. They didn't even go look for it. Nothing.
And
I mean, they had 2 dogs there, and they figured out that they didn't do it. So they just quit looking. They're like, eh. I'm like, I have no idea.
This is what Charles Fort called the wipe, right? It's again, like I brought up the Florida zombie, right? The wipe is, here's this dude who just out of nowhere freaks out and attacks the dude, eats his face, and literally it takes 2 headshots to put him down. They say it must be drugs. They test him, no drugs, but it's like, well, here's the wipe. There are drugs we just don't know to test for because there's so many different out there. It's probably what it is, and everyone goes off, and they're happy. Okay, it must be drugs. Well, hold on. There's no evidence of drugs. No, it must have been a drug, and you move on. This case, it must have been dogs. Why? Well, we have dog DNA, but the dog DNA that you have is clearly these 2 that clearly did not kill her. Must be wild dogs. We're done, and then you pack it up and leave it. Dude in light pan.
Right.
Exactly. We're done.
Yeah, big cat attack. Your experts are saying it has nothing to do with a big cat, but you're saying big cat attack, and you move on. It's the wipe. It's the official explanation. It has no evidence, but is used to just get it out of the papers so that no one actually looks too closely at what's being said.
The most convenient answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all this. These are all examples of the wipe. It was an unknown animal. Okay. And most people are like, okay, well, that's fine. To which I would say, well, what do you mean unknown? Don't we want to know what's running around eating people or taking bites?
Right.
That I'd like to know that.
Well, we can't handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if this was a domestic canine, why did they not pursue it? I mean, you've got this dog out there that is killing people, and you're not going to go find it?
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about a bear that kills a person. They're out looking for that bear. There is no doubt they're out there. Mountain lions, anything. They're out there looking for these things. But then you hear about a dog. Yeah, gators too. Yeah. But then you hear about this dog, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, it was a dog. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. So case closed.
What's weird is
that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, this case was treated completely different than the case in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had 2 dogs that didn't have any evidence on them, didn't have any stomach contents that we know of, and they went into the house when the owners were not there, from what I understand, and shot the dogs because they were acting aggressive. No kidding, they were acting aggressive. You were in their house. They're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
They don't know you.
Right.
That's literally their job.
And they never released the...
Weren't they mastiffs? They're not known to be aggressive.
No,
they're not.
They didn't even release the full report on the Amazon driver at all.
Right.
I don't know if it's because of Amazon or they knew exactly what was going on. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's like they went in, the dogs were aggressive, they shot them right there. They said that the dogs may have blood on them, but again, not released. As far as we know, there have been no reports that the stomach contents were tested at all. And there is a little report that kind of leaked out. I'm not going to say who, why, when, or where, but the coroner had stated that it was the most gruesome, brutal attack that he had ever seen.
Well, I think we've seen recently, not that any of us who've been paying attention don't know this, but we've seen recently when police find things they don't want found or make it very uncomfortable, those manifestos don't get leaked. Those crime scene reports don't get put out into the public. Right. We've seen those. We know for a fact they don't do it because it's like, nope, that's uncomfortable. When it's something they can that matches something they want out there, it's leaked almost immediately. Mm-hmm. The crime scene reports are put out almost immediately. It's when it's uncomfortable for them that we don't, and then they just never get leaked magically.
Right.
It's because they know this is not something we want to talk about. Now, it may not. Now, again, the question, some people say, well, hold on, if they're pointing to a distraction, isn't that a cover-up? Well, I would say yes and no. My problem is, for me, cover-up means for a fact that you are lying to cover up something, right? Like what the truth is, and you are deliberately lying to cover it. I think in a lot of cases, it's we don't know what this is, or it's really weird, and we don't want to look crazy. So we're just going to say unknown animal or unknown canine, and we're going to make certain enough stuff doesn't get out there so that it doesn't look like, so it looks like it's something that people can be okay with. People are okay with hearing a pack of wild dogs.
Oh yeah.
They're okay with hearing that. They're not okay with, we don't know what the hell just happened. Yeah. That is troubling.
Now, there was, I want to read these. Felicia Humphrey. In April of this year, there was a lady killed in the rural part of southeast Kentucky. She was supposed to have been killed by a pack of dogs, and it was here in Lexington, Kentucky. So, I don't know any other details. Love Cat says, I remember the story about the lady who supposedly was killed by her Dobermans, but they were found locked inside the house and she was dead in the backyard.
Mm-hmm. They still blame the dogs, didn't they?
Yep. Yeah.
It's an easy out. It is. It's like when they don't want to deal with what it could possibly be, they're out.
Well, and Chris says we just don't have packs of wild dogs here in Kentucky. We just don't.
Well, so here's the thing, right? This is all right. Let's throw an extra little wrench in here. People are okay with hearing a pack of wild dogs. Wild dogs don't attack people. Like this is when dogs when you have dogs that attack people, they're never wild. They are people's pets that have been poorly trained or even maltrained, and and they're lashing out. Wild dogs avoid humans. Animals avoid humans by and large. If they're attacking a human, something is very, very wrong. So it goes back to we hear, oh, it's a pack of wild dogs. And we're like, okay, that must be what it is. Because it makes sense in most people's heads, because most people don't know that wild dogs don't attack people. Again, that's not a never have attacked people. I'm certain that there have been packs of wild dogs that have attacked and given circumstances. The problem is the times when we know that's what's happened versus the rest of this, it doesn't make sense. Again, it's the whole in the escaped gorilla from a zoo train or from a circus train, right? That everyone kept rising. Oh, there was a zoo train wreck up north, and if you count, people went through, they've counted up every time that excuse was used. It's like you'd have hundreds of these things happening. And the problem is, every time there was an actual, it's like, yes, they did derail from time to time. There were wrecks. They know the animals that were missing, and it wasn't the ones that people would describe. And most of the animals were usually recovered very quickly because they're docile, tamed animals to begin with. They know where their meals are coming from. But again, goes back to the wipe. It is the excuse that is used to get it out of the paper so that people don't start asking questions that people don't really want to, that the people in charge don't want asked.
It's like Karen Peterson says, there are packs of feral, once domesticated dogs all over Thailand, and they completely avoid people.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is here, and don't get me wrong, I mean, it's like he said, We're not saying it doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
They get hungry enough and they see you as an easy target. Yeah, your lunch. Okay. But that's any predator. Any predator.
Yeah.
But
yeah, when Donnie hasn't had lunch, he'll go after anyone if it's.
Yeah, the problem that we're talking about
like that
is the unknown stuff. And how does that even happen these days? I mean, the DNA's so damn good that you can take. She was found in the water. Environmental DNA. You know, makes zero sense to me. Zero. They found blood, and okay, well, water destroys evidence. Okay, what about the blood they found on the road leading to?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have human DNA, you're going to have whatever the hell caused those wounds.
Right.
They never mention any of that. There's just too many holes there for me.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear about
that's
that?
What makes it so strange.
Did you guys have heard about that wolf super PAC that happened back in like 2010, I believe, 2011 in Yakutia, in like northern Siberia?
I remember
hearing about it. There was a pack of like 400 wolves that just came charging down, killed 30 horses in like 4 days. 400 wolves. That's like unheard of in nature, because normal packs are like 10 to 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's Yakutia is like known as like the coldest city in the world. And in certain conditions, you will see anomalies with animals that are very familiar to us otherwise, right? I don't know what would be scarier, one Dogman or like just an army of like 400 wolves just coming barreling down on you.
I think I'd rather take my chances with a Dogman.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, that's a great point that Donnie's making here. Ultimately, right? Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I'm right. I'm with Tex. I'd rather take on one Dogman than 400 wolves, because I don't know exactly how many wolves it would take to kick my ass, but I'm pretty sure that's overkill. But it's we talk about this all the time. Known animals will have behaviors that are uncommon or that you're unfamiliar with. They make sounds you're unfamiliar with. I hear this story. I've been in these woods all of my life. That's great. I guarantee you there's something you're not that's very common to you that will do something you've never seen. There was it was obviously just a raccoon with mange, and it was making these huffing noises. People are like, I don't know what that is. That I've hunted coon all my life. I've never heard them make that noise. I'm like, I have. I've heard. Thank you, Lily Pond. I've heard raccoons make those noises. I've heard raccoons bark. Like, they make all kinds of noises. But so again, to Tex's earlier points, yes, known animals can do things that we find very uncommon. We've never said a wolf pack or a wild dog pack or whatever would not attack a human. They have.
Yeah.
But the problem here is that the dog pack attack or whatever is often used to wipe it out when there's no real good evidence that that's what actually happened here. And that's the problem. Yes, account for the abnormalities of any normal animal just behaving wrong or whatever from time to time. Sure, I'm up for that, knowing that's a real thing. But what's your evidence that actually happened? And the problem is when they say we don't have any evidence, trust us, let's go do something else. Okay, no, that's not how this game is played here.
No, this is no.
It's like, no, you've lost all credibility with me. Prove it. Prove that that's what happened here.
And that's part of the problem. And I don't want to get into the whole government mistrust thing. That's why there is so much distrust, because we're fed half truths or out and out lies.
Well, my favorite quote is, if you trust your government, you've never read history.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's like, well, here's this one thing. It's like, no, it's the whole history. All of human history should be sufficient to tell you don't trust them ever.
Yeah.
But but that's okay. Donnie, great. We did a show on the Beasts of Gevaudan.
Yep.
Actually, I think we've done several things.
Yeah.
Right there, government saying, yeah, this was a real thing that really happened, and we're going to take care of it. Never could finally. They never were able to take care of it.
Although they claimed they did.
Well, they claimed they did. But here's this thing: a dog-like animal just running around eating people. And again, you read some of these descriptions. Donnie pointed out it looks like this was a dog man, and yet people shot it, never died. But yet it would run away from kids with spears. Like there's some real inconsistencies with this account.
Yeah.
But the simple fact of the matter is we know that it occurred. And so it goes back to, and Donnie pointed out he had a really interesting observation on this one is it kind of leads to ultimately the downfall of the French government. Because of what happens. And it's not just the one thing, but because and people are like, well, how's that connection made? Donnie was the one who pointed out. It's like you have the 7 Years' War, right? That's the first thing. Then this thing shows up, and 20 years later, you have the French Revolution. Well, all of the people who would be fighting age during the French Revolution, they were children or young teens when the Beast of Gevaudan was running around eating people willy-nilly, and the government couldn't do anything about it.
And this was international news.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a French peasant and you've seen the 7 Years' War and you saw them completely fail to save you from this, you'd be real easy to say, hey guys, why are we giving you all of this money when you're out there destroying our empire and you can't even save us from one monster? And in fact, kids with spears could run this thing off, but one of the most powerful militaries on the planet can't take care of this with all the money that we're sending you. That does lead to revolution. Those are the things that do lead to revolution. Is it possible? Again, I do think most people write it off because they don't want to think about it. But is it possible that a lot of these things are covered up because the government knows?
Right.
If they have to say there's stuff out here that we can't do anything about and we can't protect you, that leads to people asking questions that are not favorable to them.
Let me bring up another example: the lions of Tsavo. Right, 2 lions, just lions, not cryptids, just lions, just by themselves, killed how many hundreds of people?
Yeah,
when they were building that railroad in Kenya.
Yeah,
right.
A couple hundred.
Right. If 2 lions can do that, and this might sound like a joke, but I'm kind of serious here. Like, think of all the people with like pet tigers and lions, right? Who was that one guy who just kind of like let his tigers and lions out? And is it that bizarre? Instead of someone getting killed by a Dogman, what if they got killed by someone who just like a pet tiger that got let loose and just went buck wild? Right? The lions of Tsavo could do it. They did it. And they were doing it for fun.
Yeah.
Things considered.
Literally doing it for fun.
It was like a hobby. They're like, hey, these humans are so squishy and soft and easy to kill. Let's just kill them for fun.
Well, but you have to remember they were pretty much being served up like, a buffet every night.
Yeah.
I mean, they were camped along this railroad, and
a lot of those workers were from like India who weren't very familiar with the land or the flora or the fauna. They were they were not familiar with that area. So, you got a perfect storm.
Yeah. I mean, predators are going to follow the food. Well, I think, what was it they would make? A railroad could make, I can't remember how many miles a day laying track, but I mean, it's quite a bit. But I mean, think about it. These guys have been swinging these hammers all day.
Yeah.
They're,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
tired, you know, and they just laid out, like I said, in canvas tents at best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's buffet time. They just followed the snack a couple every night or whatever, and just, you know, whatever they wanted to do.
What's also interesting, the other caveat to that story that I found particularly interesting was that land itself, Savo in Kenya, was considered by the locals as like tainted land even before all the killings occurred, because that was a major thoroughway for the slave trade with the Arab slave traders. So they would bring a lot of the slaves through that Savo area where they were exactly building that those railroads, and a lot of those slaves unfortunately died during the transit process, and their bodies were left on the side of the road where these animals would eat them. And the locals said that place had a lot of very bad energy. The locals wouldn't go there because they knew it was, you know, we hear it all the time here in the States, right? Like an Indian battlefield or burial ground or cursed land, right? It's funny how it's cursed land, and it just so happens that the two lions that happen to be on that cursed land, like that's their territory, they just go out on this killing spree.
Well, you start talking about cursed land, you start talking about LBL in Kentucky. Kentucky's supposed to be cursed anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, bloody ground. I mean, that's loosely what it means. Bloody dark ground or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, from what I would understand, it was, you know, it's something, that was a place that the natives didn't, Native Indians, they didn't want to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, well, to Donnie's point, how often do you are there areas, again, they have names like Devil's Peak, right? Where it's been known for a long time, there's just bad juju there, right?
Well, and how many times do we hear that? How many times do we hear those Devil's Canyon, Satan's backbone, Devil's backbone, this, all these kind of different names for this, for these passes and everything, and these creeks, there's a reason for that. They're named that for a reason. If you don't believe that creeks are named after what they look like, drive through Texas, because we're not very imaginative, evidently, when we name crap. Jason said that before.
Yep.
You have Brushy Creek. No kidding. You have Brushy Creek right down the road. You have Muddy Creek, Red River for friggin'. Why? Oh, well, guess what? It's red. But you have the Clear Fork.
Why could we possibly call it?
Because it's got a lot of freaking elm trees on it. You know?
Mesquite, Texas. It's because it's full of mesquites. Cedar Hill. It's a hill with cedar trees on it. We don't name things well. Round Rock. The city of freaking Round Rock. You know why it's named? Because there's a creek and there's a big round rock in the creek. And if you can see it, it's safe to pass. That's why we name things in Texas. I love Texas, but our names suck. I mean, it's not as bad as Donnie Cho, but I'm just saying our names suck.
What have I named? I'm great at naming things.
That's one thing I can say about Oklahoma. They have really cool names for stuff.
Yeah,
because they use the American Indian names.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That is fair. They got that. They do have that going for them. So there you go. But I mean, to your point, if you come to a place called the Devil's Anus, please be, it's like pay attention to that.
Yeah,
it's not coming from nowhere.
Hand of Odd says they have a stinking creek in Kentucky.
The Sulphur River here in Texas. So why? Because it's salt. It smells like sulfur. It's not. We're not hiding anything from you. We're just not.
Hey, can I ask you guys a question?
No.
How many people have actually been killed by mountain lions or cougars? Actually,
not many. Not many.
I notice people are afraid of them, but you never hear stories about anyone getting got by mountain lions.
Yeah, you know what? Mainly you hear about it out of California.
Yeah. I mean, so
And
okay,
it's bikers and hikers that
Yeah.
usually get nailed.
and it's usually younger lions, and it's when it's been drier, so the prey is down. However, that having been said, how many people go hiking off into the brush and into the primitive and they don't come back? Like that is something we have to throw into account. Again, to Texas' point, most people who are attacked and killed by mountain lions, it does happen frequently, but it happens usually in California, and it's these mountain biking and hiking trails, right? So it's again, to Donnie's point with the lions, it's a perfect storm, because again, these younger lions they're not as adept. You have the joggers are triggering their instinct, but there's plenty of people who go missing out in the forest. They just never come back. And again, I'm willing to chalk some of that up to mountain lions and wolves and meth heads and whatever. But at the same time, I'm also going to say, hey, we don't know what killed them.
Right.
And that should be a problem. Like, that really should be something that we're concerned with.
Well, I would be okay if they said we don't know.
Yeah.
If they came out and said we don't know what's doing this and we're trying to find out, I would be more okay with that than what they're doing. There's something out there killing people, but I mean, I can understand why they're not doing that, because that would cause one hell of a panic. It really would, I think.
Yep.
Remember
That's
that?
That's kind of like what I was saying earlier about like, if they know it's a bear attack, they're out there looking for that bear.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what really gets me.
Speaking of dogs, come here, little dog.
Remember that story a while back about that one chimpanzee that like ripped that woman's face off all over, like,
yes,
fingers and hands, and
yes, she's killed at least 3 people this week. So
I think about that story, right? And I've heard chimp attack stories. They're pretty gnarly. And they're especially gnarly because they are intelligent, and they'll go for things that really hurt, like the eyes or the genitals or the fingers, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay,
chimpanzees go for the pain.
Yeah, I mean they're spiteful.
Yeah,
they're spiteful, right? So if a chimpanzee, because they're smart and they do attack people like that to the point where they're figuring out what really hurts. If these people were getting attacked by Dogman, I mean, those pictures you showed us, Tex, earlier, they were pretty gnarly. But I'm like, man, if she got actually attacked by a Dogman, I would imagine that would be way gnarlier, right?
Well, but hold on. So again, let's throw a little wrench into that.
I know where you're going.
That's an assumption. You are assuming how a Dogman would attack.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to maybe not all of these things are entirely naturally existing creatures, but rather are supernatural, and perhaps that they feed off of pain, fear, terror, trauma. It may not have been
for your dog there, Karen. I'm jealous. Here's another thing. Let's talk about the 30-year-old that survived the attack.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, let's talk about the one y'all were talking about, the one that the elderly woman that was killed, the teacher. Now, who's to say that the dogs that she ran with every morning didn't run the Dogman off? And what's odd to me is you never hear them talk about any of the other dogs. If she ran with these dogs every morning, and they were local dogs, and she knew this, shouldn't they know the dogs that were pretty much involved? And they said they tested 14 dogs.
Yeah. And none of them came back. Again, the only DNA they got were the 2 that weren't the ones.
Right. To me, I just don't think any of those 16 dogs were involved at all. They may have ran whatever attacked her off, though.
Or would have been or maybe the opposite. Whatever attacked her, the dogs were like, "Okay, we'll see you later, lady," and then they come back afterwards.
They shamed her,
and that's possible too. That's
right. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's.
I just wish I could hear at least just one story of like a friendly dog man, you know?
Oh, they're out there.
Like a domesticated dog man.
Well,
who's like, you know, he just like is so happy to see you. Like your dog, he's just like wagging his tail. It's like, yes, you've come back home from work.
Have tails. Some of them do, some of them don't.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that's because we don't really know what they're all about. You know, we have so many Bigfoot researchers out there, you know, learning Bigfoot and how they do things and how they react in certain situations and all of this. But the Dogman, on the other hand, it's kind of like we learn about them after the fact, after they've been seen for a split second and what they left or the hair. We can't follow them. Nobody's following them. You know what I mean? It's like there's no pack to follow. It's like they're there and they're gone. You don't know what happens. And I guess that's what's making it so hard is we genuinely don't have any information on them.
Yeah.
Real quick.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
A lot of speculation. But it's the same thing with Bigfoot. A lot of speculation.
Yeah. Cryptidville says
people don't want it, and people do not want to admit that it's speculation or just belief.
Yeah.
You know, or opinion. Yeah. But you know.
Well, to Cryptidville's
point, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it is speculation. And to Cryptidville's point, you know, responding to Don, he said he's had 2 Dogman encounters. He's still breathing last time he checked. Yeah, but to Donnie's point, where's the stories? You know, I mean, did they help you home with your groceries? No. You know, that's his whole point. Where's the friendly Dogman encounters? But this does go back to the bigger point: is if these things really were if these were naturally occurring predators, we'd have a lot more dead people.
Hey, I took a Dogman encounter one time, and this is years ago. Thank you, Northern California Cubs fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, it jumped on me. Thank you, Cubbies fan.
Y'all got to come over to the front porch. Y'all, this is 100 people. Y'all got to come over to the front porch on Mondays and see me and Brandy. Y'all just got to. But
use your words, Tex.
Well, it's hard to with this. It
is because you're trying to find the right word. I don't think there is one.
I don't either, because I took this account years ago, and some of you in chat's heard it. But the gist of it was that this old boy had some friends, and they were all ex-military, and they would go out and practice their skills together in the woods and basically play soldier. And thank you, Be Kind. And they encountered not only a couple of dogmen, but a rake.
She's found another victim.
And if I remember right, I can't remember if the rake killed the dogman or the dogman killed the rake, but either way, they ended up shooting a dogman and killing it. And after this happened, they had a couple of their boys get killed, and they had to drag them back out of the brush, and they were miles back in the brush, and they had, when they got back, they had to explain it to all these ABC agencies. And then this the alpha dogman named Gray. He was a gray dogman. There we go with their names again.
Mm-hmm.
Came to visit this guy and was having conversations with him. Physical conversations, not mental conversations, physical conversations. And according to him, he was having to hold the rest of the pack back from killing this guy for shooting one of their members of the pack. And he didn't know how long he could keep protecting him. And when we pressed him about it and asked him, hey, if you're sitting on a log, literally sitting on a log, having a conversation with this dog man, and he speaks English, but it's hard to understand sometimes because the dog ain't got the biomechanics to make a language in the first place. Like we understand. But this one evidently could speak. Now, then we said, well, can you get his permission or be sneaky enough to slip at least an audio recorder in your pocket? If you can't take a picture, if he won't let you take a picture, whatever. Can you slip an audio recorder? We want to just hear the conversation. Like the next day, we hear back from this guy. Y'all need to forget I ever existed. Say I was a hoaxer. I've lost my family and my job and everything over this. And I've got to run because the ABC folks are after me. So that's how that little one went down. Now, that was a friendly dog, man. He was trying to keep the rest of his pack from killing him. Because he knew that it was an accident. He understood that they scared him, that the dog man scared the guys, and they thought they needed to protect themselves, and they were actually fighting the rake. And of course, they were carrying 50 calibers out there in the woods with them, and I don't know, miniguns or whatever. But yeah, that was one of the two most outrageous stories that I've ever heard.
Well, I'm going to do a quick plug here, gentlemen. Rob's book, right? I just had Rob on my show this past Wednesday because I wanted to interview him about this book, about some of the stories in the book. And in this book, there are a couple stories of people actually having been killed, supposedly by a dog man, right? There's a couple of them. There was that one with the priest that he had brought up that we had talked about. Yeah. And then the last one, it was about these two guys back in the 90s who one guy had no clue what Dogman was until he found out, until one day he goes out to his front porch and there's a carcass of a pig that had been gutted. Its entrails, its guts are all gone. It's been drained of its blood and it's sitting there. He finds tracks all over his property. His buddy, who's like the ranger who works for the park, this was in Alabama, by the way, tells them about this dogman creature. They go out to investigate it. Long story short, when they find the tracks, right, on the second night. They try to follow it. It leads back to their own camp. They find the camp completely destroyed. The ranger guy who told them about Dogman goes into like a zombie-like trance, tells the guy, hey, I'm sorry, runs off into the woods. The guy can't catch him, right? He eventually finds him leaning up against a tree. And when he gets up to him, he finds that the ranger guy had slit his own throat. And in the other story with the priest, we talked about these people were having these encounters with this dog-like creature outside their bathroom window, staring into their house. What happens? Becomes a murder-suicide. So based off what I'm reading in Rob's book, it seems like if the way Dogman would actually try to kill someone would be just to make them do it themselves, right?
Well, and this goes back to the one of those things we've brought up on other shows. The idea of the Hellhound is a very, very old idea.
Oh, you got to tell that story.
Okay. So
the funeral.
Yeah. So this is a story. Again, there's stories you get from people and you don't buy them because it's like it's a little too weird, or it's, or the person. This is one of those people that when you know and you when you hear them tell the story, it's real because he's like, no, I was there, and he won't associate with other people from his family because of what happened. It's just outside of San Antonio. His this side of the family has connections to the Mexican mafia and the cartels. Okay. So again, that does come, as I've mentioned earlier, that does come with connections to certain occult groups. If you know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Anyone in Texas knows what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So they're there for his funeral. And this is an old school Catholic church in South Texas. That means it's very old and it's very heavy, and the doors are big and oak and they're heavy. Doors are closed. They begin the funeral. The doors open by themselves. And again, my friend is telling me this because he was there. Doors open and in walks the biggest, blackest dog they've ever seen in their lives. So it just looks like a big, massive black dog. I'm like, you mean it like a wolf? He goes, no, just dog. Like it's massive. Red, bloodshot eyes, not glowing or anything like that, just bloodshot. Dog walks up and sits down and is staring at his casket. This dude's he's just staring at it. Some people, anytime anyone tried to get near him to maybe take the dog out, no collar, no nothing, he would growl at him, and so everyone just sort of let him. Priest finished they're like, okay, we'll go. The priest finishes the ceremony, finishes the funeral, and as soon as he's done, that dog stands up and walks out. Everyone there, particularly on the other side of the family, believes that was they'll tell you, the devil there to bring his soul to hell. Not just a demon, like, no, straight up, that was the devil. So, but the point is, you go throughout history, you find people who are, hellhounds are a constant. People talking about people being tormented by visions of big black dogs. Is it possible that the canine form is a theme that is much more prevalent and much older? And again, Donnie, going back to the original part, to the first part of the show, you're mentioning these stories where clearly this canine this entity is having other effects on people. Mm-hmm. Go back to the original Beast of Bray Road. Linda Godfrey's the one who really put Dogman on the map from a modern perspective.
Right.
It's very clear that it's again, to Texas story. There is this is connected to the occult, to entities that are not of our reality. These things are, and I think this goes back to we when we look at this phenomena writ large, it's clear we're looking at something that is not what it appears to be.
Well, but Be Kind has a legitimate question. Did anyone not try to banish this thing in the name of Jesus?
I have. Well, again, this goes back to that particular side of the family. Again, Mexican mafia and the occult. They're Catholic, right, in quotation marks,
not
right?
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's like a curandara, right? Like the story again in my book of the Lechuza. It's a curandara. So she would still go to a Catholic church on Sunday, but she ain't Catholic, right? Right. It's the same thing. They didn't. Everyone was terrified of this thing. They just looked at it. They're like, okay, we're gonna just keep moving. I mean, take it from again. The person who told me, I believe this story. This is one of the stories you have to believe when you realize who's telling you the story. So it's like it happened, and that story runs afoul a lot of people's assumptions about things. But that's kind of our point.
And it's like y'all, you and Donnie were talking about the canine image, representation, whatever you want to call it, goes back and back and back. Servius.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Three-headed dog.
Mm-hmm.
What'd he do? Guarded the gates of hell.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hades, but yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forget what it. I forget the original, but essentially Cerberus just means spot. The dog's name's Spot.
No, it was on four legs. I saw Melissa ask that question. I saw Michelle ask that question. No, it was on four legs. It was just a dog.
Just a very large black dog.
Just barged in the middle of a church in the middle of a funeral.
Did he describe what the dog looked like? What kind of breed it might have been?
He just said it was just the biggest, blackest dog he's ever seen.
Huh.
Well, again, I think there are events. Again, this goes back to why I don't really listen for really fine detail in most stories, because if it's real and it's happening to you, fine details do not stand out. Your adrenaline is going. You have the fear response going. You're not going to be like, well, that's how you know you're dealing with someone who's lying, is they're giving you a lot of extraneous details when there really shouldn't be extraneous details. That's kind of how you know you're dealing with someone who's lying to you.
Right.
So, because they're trying to make it sound like that they're telling you the truth, so they're giving you too much. When you're in a fight or flight or a fear response, you don't remember details at all. In fact, if you get everything correct, that means you're lying, because when you're in a fight or flight, time compresses, distance is wrong. Anytime you are in a high stress situation, details disappear. You can't measure distance for crap.
When you go back to my encounter, I thought what I saw was about 6 feet, a little over 6 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
But years later, when I was walking through work, talking to a buddy of mine, and he was asking me about it, and he goes, "How tall was this thing?" I said, "Oh, hell, it wasn't no taller than the doors." And he puts his hand on my chest. He's a big dude. He puts his hand on my chest, looks at me, and goes, "Tex, those are 8-foot doors."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's my whole point. Again, if someone's giving you too much detail, it's because they're lying. But again, back to our original point here, the Dogman phenomena and a lot of these deaths under mysterious circumstances are clearly part of a larger phenomena that's not necessarily as well understood, even in this community, right? Because we're trying to put things in boxes oftentimes instead of saying, well, hold on, are we putting different things in the same box? Is this box even applicable to what we're seeing in this phenomena? And these are all questions that we just really don't have answers to. Mm-hmm. And it's not well understood. And we need to, and until we admit that, we're not really going to make a lot of progress on this. But what we do see is there are patterns, and we need to be willing to say that these patterns exist and start moving forward from that.
Right.
Well,
guys, we have almost hit the 2-hour mark, and I mean, I hate to give it up. We got 100, over 110 in chat. But
we have that many people. Oh man, I feel all shy all of a sudden.
We had 116 at one point. So I mean, I'm not going to say they're here to see me, but
no, I'm scared.
Probably are.
But that's all right. Well, let's just wind it up anyway, and tell everybody tomorrow Blondes and Booze is having a special broadcast tomorrow night. We are investigating the oh my gosh, I am getting confused. The museum in Richmond, Missouri. And like I said, that's gonna be fun. You're gonna see me running around the dark again. So come on, take a peek, talk to me while I'm going. Mm-hmm. Maybe you see something I don't. So that'll be fun.
Oh, and Pixie's supposed to lead y'all to where she feels this little girl was hiding back when she lived there.
Right. Goldie. Right. And I just want to take time out again to say thank you, Be Kind, Poncho Zorch, Hawk, Sherry Griffey, and Lily Pond. We thank you for everything. We appreciate you. And that's all I got for tonight.
Yeah, and y'all come over to see us on the porch.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Mondays,
Yeah.
7 p.m. Central.
Tex will even Tex, and we all know that they're here for you, Tex. So let's be honest. He's gonna do Monday's show topless.
Oh yeah, he's gonna do it topless.
I gotta go buy a new bra.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget about the Alabama Bigfoot Conference in June. Tickets are $30 online, $35 at the door. Vendor spots, I think, are $75. Speakers are going to be Jason McLean, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and Daryl Denton. Of course, the Blondes and the Booze, Krista and Brandy, and Barton Nunnelly. Now, don't forget about the meet and greet that we're going to have. You're responsible for your own meal. All we ask is you RSVP. Okay? It's going to cost you nothing.
We'll all be there.
Cost your meal and beverages.
Yeah.
Adult or otherwise.
Donnie's going to be there. That means you can find him, poke him with a stick.
Yeah, man.
Our whole crew's going to be there. Donnie's going to be there.
And our whole crew is speaking except for me, which is probably for the best.
Danielle's not speaking. I'm not speaking.
Yeah. Well, you're emceeing.
Yeah, well, you know.
If I were speaking, that would be an utter disaster because, my pants might not stay on.
I may hand over the MC duties to you. What do you think about that?
How about I be the guy that runs around in the crowd with the mic? The people who raise their hand, and I'll be the one that
we do that. We do crowd interaction talks for the most part. So
I'll be the guy sticking the mic and the other person who wants to.
Riot talk. Control is not group interaction.
Man, I'm just trying to meet some cryptid groupies, man. Where are the cryptid groupies at?
Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I will say this: I'm making the
in English text.
I'm trying. I've been brushing up on my English.
How many words? Sounds like.
Yeah.
It's a book.
The Infamous Minds, I'm releasing. You can, if members can get it immediately, non-members see it at 2:00 in the afternoon on Saturdays.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
This coming week, at some point, we're going to have the members only, and we're giving away the Bigfoot thermometer. Just a second, I'll find it. Where did it go?
Wait, I can do a puppet show.
Oh, it's over there. It's sitting on the dresser over there, but it's about this long, and it's an indoor-outdoor metal thermometer and it's Bigfoot and it says myth, legend, lore, whatever. So it's pretty cool. But that's going to be the giveaway. That's members only. So if you want to become a porcher, not a porch pirate, a porcher, come on over to the porch and
stop being a porcher.
On the dotted line. We only want your firstborn. That's all we ask. So y'all have a great night. Don't forget the booze tomorrow. That's going to be a great show, and we'll see y'all later. Take care. Be safe, and have a great
Bye,
week.
everybody.
Tex has got to find the button.
Oh.